Welcome back to Small Caps, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kerry Stevenson. Next up, we have Chris Cairns. He's the Managing Director of Stavely Minerals. ASX code is SVY. Now, Chris has been on this program before, and at the last one I said, Chris, let's not leave it so long, didn't I, Chris? I said, let's make sure you come back on soon. But he's been very busy, and they've got some interesting projects in Western Victoria. We're going to go through that. We're going to go through the porphyry. We're going to go through the news and the fact that it's been a bit wet out there. So it's been some challenging times getting into the project. But Chris, welcome back to Small Caps. Fantastic to see you.
Likewise, Kerry. Let's not leave it another 6 months until we have our next chat.
But we won't do it on Christmas Day either. Can't believe it's October. Let's start with, people will know from the last time we spoke who you are. But since we last spoke, which was in April of this year, what has Stavely Minerals been up to?
Yeah, look, we got the last results of our field season last year. In particular, drill holes 173 and 182, fabulous holes. They're the deepest holes that we've drilled in the Cayley Loud, and they were where we cut off the drilling for the resource estimate. Holes 173 was 43 meters at 2.6% copper, 0.7 grams gold. And then hole 182, a little bit deeper down, 10.4 meters at 4.34% copper and 3.17 grams gold. What an absolute cracker. The interesting and really topical observation here is that the gold grades are increasing as we go to depth. We've recently had Dr. Steve Darwin come to site to evaluate the project, and we're really excited about the outcomes that he's identified and the opportunities. And really, this change in ratios between there's more chalcopyrite relative to pyrite as we go deeper. The gold grades are starting to come up almost with parity in a grams per ton basis with the copper grades. It's all consistent with the system evolving from a high sulfidation load style system up the top, which is mainly the Cayley Load, and it's transitioning into more of an intermediate sulfidation you would expect as it goes towards a porphyry source. And so this all fits into the picture of us transitioning into a higher grade gold system, and these being the deepest holes. Clearly there's opportunity to continue to follow this down and potentially identify the causative porphyry at depth. And obviously, the Cayley Loud resource is nearly 10 million tons at 1.23% copper and 0.23 grams gold, but a porphyry will be the game changer. It's completely different scale.
Just for those that don't know, explain the porphyry to those out there that are sitting here going, well, they understand copper gold, but what do you mean the porphyry? Okay,
so the deposit that we discovered, the Cayley Loud, is high grade, sort of semi-massive sulfide in a structurally controlled expression of mineralization. It's quite beautiful to look at. It's very heavy. It's all sulfide. But this type of system has never been identified in Australia. Examples exist in North America, the Magma Arizona type system or the Butte Montana type system are examples of this style of mineralization. Now, we use the magma analogy because that vein system was mined from, say, the 1850s into the 1900s, so over 100 years with the copper production, high grade. And it wasn't until about 10 years ago that Rio Tinto discovered a porphyry underneath it. And so we understand that there's this linkage between a porphyry, in this case it's called resolution, it's 2 billion tons at 2.5% copper. So it's an absolute cracker of a deposit. But it is what caused these high-grade veins, the magma veins above it. So we draw the analogy with the Cayley Loud being the magma vein equivalents, and that there is a causative porphyry at depth that's generated the fluids that's carried the metals up into this position. So we've postulated the existence of this porphyry for some time. And look, put it on ice a little bit while we're finishing the resource drill out, under the premise that as we do that resource drilling and as those drill holes progressively get deeper, we'll be collecting important information that will give us an idea and potentially a vector to where that porphyry would be. As it turns out, that's exactly what's happened. Not only are those holes 173, 182 really fabulous contributors of high-grade mineralization to the Cayley lode, but it has given us a pointer as to the porphyry being not too far away below those drill holes.
And I guess by porphyry, you mean the source, the
right.
rich source, if you like.
Indeed. And look, the porphyries you have to think of in the context of Australian examples of North Parkes and Cadia Valley, which really were company makers for groups like North, since taken over by Rio Tinto, and Newcrest. So they're big company type assets. And, it's pretty rare to find one of these things. We've been onto this system for some time and we've been pretty methodical, but we've also sought to engage some of the best minds in the world in terms of, confirming that this system is what we have always thought it to be.
You mentioned someone by the name of Dr. Steve Garwin before.
That's correct.
Who is he? Why did you have him come and look at it? And what can you tell us about, is he excited? What's the story around that?
Sure. So Steve just gave us a technical presentation to the team just to sort of fact check his understanding and his data. And he'll be presenting to the board next week. And I think it's fair to say that he is excited. He likes what he sees and it all makes sense in terms of structure, in terms of the chemistry of the system, the nature of how the sulfide mineralization is evolving at depth. It all makes complete sense in terms of a vector down to a porphyry source. So Dr. Steve Garwin is with the Center for Exploration Targeting at UWA. He's an independent consultant. He's worked with Sol Gold in Ecuador and a number of other clients around the world. So he's got a huge amount of porphyry experience, North and South America, Southeast Asia, all around the world. So, really for us, we like to work with consultants that have that additional experience and have seen mineralization in a whole range of different settings, because that broadens the experience base that we're exposed to and that has eyes on our deposit. So it's just been a fabulous experience. He's very knowledgeable and he looks for particular things and he sees them at the Cayley lode that's indicating a definite association with a porphyry source.
Woo-hoo-hoo, it's getting a little bit exciting then. Are you able to put his findings out to the public? I mean, it's...
Yeah, I had mentioned that, there will be an announcement detailing not just the extension of the Cayley lode opportunities and the deeper porphyry opportunities, but also the near resource opportunities within the local area in an announcement within the next couple of weeks, after the board has had an opportunity to review it. And once I've done that, then I'll upload his report onto our website, and shareholders can access that technical data tab on our website and hear it from the horse's mouth, as they say.
Well, I hope it's not all going to be too technical. I hope for people like myself and some of our people out there. And by the way, I know some of you are very technical and very up with it, but for us that aren't, well, I'm hoping there'll be some sort of summary as well. That's the simplified version, if you like.
Indeed, there will be. And in fact, Steve's presentation just given to us an hour ago was 98 slides. That's for the technical team.
Wow.
I'll trim that down to about 15 slides for the board, and that'll be the one that goes up on the website. So we've got a couple of accountants that we have to make things easily understandable.
Good,
So,
good to hear. And that's really interesting that he's come along, he understands porphyries, and he says, all indications, you haven't found it yet, but all indications are pointing to the fact that there's something there.
That's correct. And we're not talking about just one data set. We're talking about the textures, the copper chalcopyrite to pyrite ratios, the structural interpretations all line up, the short wavelength infrared mineralogy all lines up. So there's multiple data sets that are all self-confirming or confirming each other to say that, yeah, this makes total sense in terms of our understanding of how these systems evolve.
You talked about a couple of holes at the Cayley lode. Specifically, I want to focus on hole 182.
Yes.
How deep was that hole, number one? And number two, why is it important that the gold is becoming parity to copper? What does that tell you from your point of view? Why is that important?
Yeah, so it does indicate that the mineral assemblage high up is what we call a high sulfidation mineral assemblage. So they're more acid type of minerals. And as we get down deeper into the area where 182 has tested, the mineralization changes into an assemblage of hematite, chalcopyrite, much less pyrite, and it goes into what would be considered intermediate sulfidation. And so as we go deeper, we're transitioning into a fluid system and a hydrothermal system that is getting more proximal to a porphyry type system. So porphyry, this is still structurally controlled. Porphyries generally are disseminated mineralization, hence the bulk tonnage and the large size of these things. But we can see this system transitioning towards an assemblage that is really saying you're getting much closer to the porphyry than you were when you were, up the top. Okay,
so how deep was that?
So, sorry, the drill hole, the intercept in that drill hole was about 400 meters down drill hole. So, 85% of that would be somewhere around 350 meters depth.
Okay, so it's not that deep.
It's not that deep it's not that deep in the context of high-grade mineralization. If in the Australian context, we drew an analogy of the structurally controlled mineralization to the Cobar Valley type of mineralization, where the CSA mine's just been sold for over $1 billion and they're mining at 2 kilometers depth. So, it's not that deep in terms of high-grade mineralization, but it's also not that deep in terms of porphyry mineralization. I mentioned the resolution porphyry associated with the magma vein set in Arizona. The top of that porphyry is at 1,500 meters depth.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Now, I need to ask you this, Chris. It's been a little bit wet. We all know this on the East Coast. In fact, it hasn't been a little bit wet. I'm lucky I'm up on the Gold Coast, but those people in Victoria have been smashed with the rain. Is that affecting how you go about creating that news flow?
Yeah, look, it is a bit problematic, and it's an issue that we're seeking to address. The reality is that with 3 years in a row of La Nina, Eastern Australia has been,
copped it.
Absolutely drenched, floods, etc. We haven't suffered floods, thankfully, but it's very soggy underfoot, and it makes it very difficult to be in the paddocks over winter. The last thing we want to do is tear up the paddocks and make a mess and really get ourselves offside with the local landholders. That's the last thing we want to do. Yeah. So we've got to minimize our work programs through the winter period, which effectively means we can work from about now in a normal year through to the end of April, and farmers sow at the end of April and looking for early rains in May. So the problem is that our news flow is asymmetric in that respect. So we've got a 6-month news season, and then in the winter we do a lot of planning, a lot of data analysis, and we've just come through that process. And that's Steve Garwin's been the site. We've worked up all of our targets, and we're ready to go for this field season commencing now. But the news flow is asymmetric, and so it's really difficult to keep shareholders and investors' interest when you've got a bit of a dead period. So recognizing that, and also recognizing that, look, the company's positioned in energy metals space, that copper is really, really important to that transition to a low carbon economy. And so we want to keep that thematic going in terms of energy metals. And so we are reviewing a number of nickel projects in northern WA that we quite like. There'll be a proposal put to the board in the not too distant future. And that gives us the complementary exploration season of cooler temperatures in northern WA in the winter, when we can do work programs there, generate news and maintain a continuous news cycle as we do these seasonal campaigns alternatively in northern WA and then in Victoria during the winter.
When do you think you're, so what can you tell us about what you're looking at in WA, or is that all hush hush for now?
No, look, I don't think it's particularly sensitive in that I think that they're likewise to copper. I like to be in large liquid markets where there's a lot of off-takers. And so in terms of metals and energy metals in particular, graphite would be an example of something that's illiquid and it's a small market. There's only 6 off-takers in the world, for example. I hate those sorts of commodities because you're a price taker, not a price maker.
Okay.
Whereas the bigger, more liquid markets would include nickel, for example, where similar to copper, widely reported that there's going to be a supply shortfall relative to the demand required for all of these, lithium batteries and cathodes and this energy transition. So nickel, I think, complements what we've got as an asset base right now. So it would be no secret that I'll be looking for, magmatic nickel systems in northern WA, where Geoscience Australia, for example, have identified it's the most prospective and underexplored area in Australia for nickel sulfides. So,
okay.
So there are a number of opportunities up there. There's they're quality assets, but again, it's, if I can say it, it's sort of thinking person's exploration. You can't just walk up to a mag target and pop a drill hole into it. You really have to understand what you're doing, what it is you're looking at, and what it means in terms of where you're at in the system. So again, not dissimilar in terms of process, the exploration process, to what we've got down at Thursday's Gossan. You really need to be on the ball, you need to be taking good advice, and you need to be doing high quality work.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's speak about high quality work, because I know, look, Chris, you are very passionate about Western Victoria, what you've got there and the porphyry, and you've always said, it's there. The market seems to not think so. And I'll be brutal with you, sorry, but this is what my audience have asked me, and that is your share price seems to have been smashed a little bit hard. Why is that? Do people not think you've got a porphyry there, or what's going on with the share price? Sure.
Well, pre-release of our resource, we were probably traveling between 35 and 50 cents, which would have had us at a market cap of north of $100 million, which I was pretty comfortable with, in terms of what it is that we had, not what it is that we promised in terms of the porphyry. But we finished the drill out. We announced the resource on the worst day in the markets in probably 10 years, and then got smashed. And unfortunately, I think that mums and dads thought, oh, look, their resources come out, their share price is going down, not because everything else in the market's going down, but because they thought, oh my God, the resource isn't any good.
Did they not read the information?
I know. So nothing could be further from the truth. It's quality resource, about 75% of it indicated category resources, so higher confidence, 9.3 million tons at 1.25% copper, a quarter gram gold, a bit of silver. So it really is a really sweet, nice resource. Unfortunately, released on the worst day in the market in 10 years, and we get smashed. But in completing that resource and the resource estimate, we need to come to market for money. Major shareholder says, oh, well, look, I'll cornerstone the raise, but I'll insist on a 25% discount to your current share price, which was 20 cents. So it got a little bit mercenary in that respect. But we needed the money. We had to do it. So there was no alternative. We had promised the market that we wouldn't raise money until we had released the resource. We're true to our word, but with awful timing. So since then, we've been in a bit of a quiet period in terms of news. It's been the winter, it's been wet, and we suffered from this lack of news flow. We're getting now into our exploration season, and we've done our homework over the winter, and we've got all of our targets lined up. We know exactly what we want to do on the ground. We're very excited. The people on site are really keen to get out there and get some results. We've strangely enough, from left field, a soil auger result with relatively high grade rare earths in it that we did not expect. But having received that result, we then go back to the magnetics and go, oh my God, it's obvious. It's clearly related to an intrusion, and you can see this alteration halo around it. So potentially one of these peralkaline or carbonatite type of rare earth intrusions. An example would be Mount Weld in WA, which is possibly one of the largest rare earth producers outside of China.
Wow.
So that was a little bit left field, but not to look a gift horse in the mouth, we will pursue that opportunity, notwithstanding that we're not going to take our eyes off the ball of the potential porphyry. So the share price got smashed through unfortunate timing, exacerbated by a bit of a lack of news flow, which is, as I say, really the impetus for looking to get some energy metal projects in northern WA where we can work over the winter and we can maintain that news flow. But having said that, the quality of the asset we have in terms of the defined resource really underpins our market cap, and we're not getting any value in the market for what we believe is confirmation and affirmation of our belief that porphyry is still down there, and now we feel that we're not far away from it.
And I was just about to say, Chris, if you don't think you're very far away from it, excite us a little bit and go, listen, we're very, very, very close. Are we talking 6 months? Are we talking a couple of months? I just want to know, how do you reach the bloody porphyry?
Yeah, look, you can whack in a couple of big holes, and it's sort of like in the gridiron parlance, a Hail Mary pass that you hope someone 50 meters downfield catches for a touchdown, or you can methodically make your way up the field, and really that's more our approach. We've done a couple of deeper holes. We think we understand why they weren't successful, but really our approach now is that we're going to walk this thing down and continue to develop the evolution of this system. We don't think that we're far away. We don't have to throw a Hail Mary, that we can just walk it down with systematic drilling underneath what we've drilled to date. At the very least, we should see more of this high-grade structurally controlled material, with the gold grades coming to parity with copper, and really cementing the development opportunity for what we've got, as well as potentially just evolving into that porphyry type system, and then it's a completely different ballgame.
Are you funded to get to do all this work?
Look, at the moment, we've got about $7 million cash in the bank. We do need to be prudent. Markets are currently a bit volatile.
Mm-hmm.
A madman in Russia doing crazy things to the Ukraine, and it's just despicable. But we have to be prudent, but we will be drilling some of those holes, if not all of them, at depth. We expect during January, or commencing in January.
Okay, all right. So there's going to be a lot more news flow in January as well, which means I'm going to find you and I'm going to haul you back here and go, right, what's it showing us now? Because that to me sounds like it's pretty exciting times for Stavely going forward. And thank you for explaining a little bit about the share price, bad timing, and I guess an opportunistic cornerstone investor. I mean, kind of good on him or her, but damaging for others.
Yeah, look, and being in that situation, we had a decision to make. So we did need to take some money. So in the institutional raising, we took $4 million, which in the theme of things, is not that dilutionary on our existing share capital. So we wanted to keep that smallish. However, then we opened up for an SPP for existing shareholders to participate. I've never seen it before in my corporate lifetime, but we raised more money on the SPP to existing shareholders, $5.3 million.
Wow.
Compared to the institutional placement. So it was, I think, existing shareholders saw it as an opportunity. Well, look, if the share price is at this point, well, look, we'll stick our hands in the pockets, we'll grab some more. So I think there's a degree of belief out there in existing shareholders that, yes, we are undervalued. And as I say, definitely there's no value in the share price for the porphyry potential. We've been banging on about it for some time, but it's real and it's in front of us.
All right, well, let's hurry up and find that porphyry. That's all I can say. Chris, we've run out of time, my friend. That was a really good wrap up. I enjoyed chatting to you, but give us 3 reasons why people should be sitting up and taking notice of Stavely Minerals ASX code SVY right now.
Well, look, I've got a bit of porphyry experience in the Philippines and Indonesia, worked with BHP and a few other companies in Southeast Asia. And this is the best opportunity I've seen in a long time. Dr. Steve Garwin's just been to site. He has a huge amount of experience. He's excited. We're looking at that WA energy metals, nickel optionality so that we have some more symmetric news flow. That's the second thing. And the third thing, we've got a quality high-grade copper gold resource with a $50 million market cap. That may be reflecting that finite thing. We're going to grow that, and it certainly does not value any upside for the porphyry. And we've said for a long time that it's there, and now we're even more sure that it's down there.
And Dr. Steve Garwin got himself pretty excited as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go to the Stavely Minerals website. It will be up there in the next few weeks. Keep an eye out on all the news flow that's coming up as Chris Cairns and his team work slowly and steadily towards uncovering that porphyry. That will be an exciting day. Chris Cairns, thank you so much for joining me on Small Caps today.
A pleasure, Kerry. Thank you very much.